Hey, this is Evan Marquez, dating and relationship coach for smart, strong, successful women, your personal trainer for love. Welcoming you back to the LoveU podcast, where you can learn everything you need to know about dating, relationships, sex, and men from a man's point of view. And you can raise your standards for what you come to expect from guys and find a relationship that makes you feel safe, heard, and understood. Three words that very few people associate with relationships, unfortunately. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to know if a guy is into you. And the irony of this is that there's nothing I'm about to say is anything less than obvious. I think the big takeaway as I was writing this episode was to consider how much women, because I'm only talking to women, men do the same thing, but how much women let go in service of delusional thinking when they find a guy that they like. How many things you're willing to let go of, how many excuses and rationalizations you're willing to make when you find a guy that you're attracted to. Uh, I think that's sort of important to emphasize because it's not really a secret when someone's into you. And you should only be with guys who demonstrate that they are into you. It doesn't mean you have to like every guy who's into you. Just because a guy does all these things that I'm about to mention and makes an effort doesn't mean he's worthy of the job. But in our intern CEO metaphor, we really need the very bare minimum for an intern is that they want the job, right? Is that they show up strong, they come in early, they stay late. It's very clear what their intentions are. So most of the stuff we're talking about is just effort based, desire based. It has nothing to do with who he is on paper. It's how he shows up for you. So here are 6 ways to know if he's into you. And at the end, I'm going to share kind of uh, an interesting idea about what you should be looking for in addition to these 6 things. So the first thing is that he prioritizes you. Number one, he makes time for you. There's a lot of guys who you could have a connection with, and there's a lot of guys who, are great on paper, and there's a lot of guys that you could enjoy when you meet them for drinks or dinner or sex. The thing that makes a relationship is the consistency of it. I've mentioned before, I'm talking to Bethany Frankel, and she's the busiest person I've ever met, and she's tethered to her phone. She always makes time, and she really values guys who make an effort for her, even though they are really big time business people, super busy, lots of things pulling their attention. People who value relationships put relationships first in addition to all the busy things that they have going on. So it doesn't mean someone's a bad person or that your connection's not real, but a guy has to prioritize not just keeping in touch with you, but seeing you as well. Next is to communicate consistently. For me, I've told the story many times. I was dating my wife for about a month. She was my girlfriend at that point, and she said, "Hey, I want to talk to you, right? I want to hear from you every single day." And texting's not enough. So before you go to bed, give me a call to say goodnight. Maybe we'll talk for a minute, maybe we'll talk for an hour, but just make sure you reach out to me every night. Could you do that for me? It would make me really happy. Very easy ask, very reasonable, and it was something that I did, and that became our cadence for keeping in touch through when we were married. Right? Like that's the way I did it. She never had to call me. She never had to remind me to call her. It was our understanding that I was going to call her at the end of every single day. That is the kind of thing, you don't have to follow that template, but that's the kind of thing you should come to expect from a guy who is into you. Not at the beginning, right? Not week one. You're not going to expect that from a guy because he doesn't know if he really likes you yet. But sometime in that first month, you really want to see an escalation of his efforts to communicate every day, communicate in between dates, and put the next date on the calendar. Next, number th number three, he makes an effort to impress you. I know it might be stupid caveman behavior, but we value your opinion. We want you to be attracted to us. We want you to like us. And so sometimes guys do tone deaf things to impress you, right? Their form of impressing you is going to be talking about themselves and how great they are and why you should value them. I'm a black diamond skier. I've got a second home in the Bahamas. That's a form of impressing. It's not generally that impressive. The one that we value more is the one, what kind of effort is he making? Is he planning thoughtful dates? Is he remembering what my favorite wine is the next time we go out? Has he bought me those proverbial flowers that I hinted at? Or when we talked about taking a weekend away, has he made plans for us by his own volition without me reminding him to? So the guy who takes the time to listen to you and impress you is a better bet than the guy who's sort of indifferent and he's like, oh, I got her. Now I don't have to do anything for her. Uh, Number four, he shows an interest in your life. This is a big one. And I'm not going to make any excuses for guys. A lot of men really don't care about you or your life. I know it's blunt to say it like that, but it's true. They're only interested in how you look at them and how you make them feel. They're not interested in your career or your friends or your family or your workout routine or your diet or what you're streaming. And I think it would be pretty hard to have a relationship with a guy, right? I don't know if that's textbook narcissism, but I think a lot of men are less interested in that. And so you're looking for a guy who really makes you feel seen and feel valued like an individual. And he wants to know what you're up to, and he wants to know about your day, and he listens to your answers, and he follows up with a question specific to your answer instead of it being sort of all about him. So a woman could get away with, going on a date, asking him questions, never saying a thing, and the guy would be like, best date of my life. You're looking for a guy who gives you more than that. And you deserve a guy who gives you more than that. Next, a guy who's attentive and affectionate. Uh, as a man, I underestimated women's need to be desired because I thought it was the kind of thing that came effortlessly. If we say men look for sex and find love, well, of course, men lead with sex and physical and touch and oh my God, you're so beautiful and I can't wait to. And that seemed to be like built into every equation. Every person I went out with, presumably I was attracted to her and would show affection. But I've been struck by how many women have dealt with a lack of affection from their partners and why that is so very, very important to get physical touch and to feel desired by someone, not just at the beginning when everybody feels desire, but down the road. So yes, at the beginning, to say, he shows affection doesn't really mean very much. It's whether he continues to show affection and desire for you way past the honeymoon phase of the relationship. Next, number six, he talks about a future. And this is important. Um, I had a conversation last night that struck this chord where women were trying to divine what a guy was thinking and why he would do what he would do and how could you know? And I've used this before, but I said, how do you know if a guy likes fantasy football? Do you have to sit on the first date, second date, and be like, hey, Brad, do you have a fantasy football team? Nope. Brad's got to volunteer information about his fantasy football team, whether you care or you don't, and you probably don't. People volunteer the things they care about. So if you were dating me when I was 35 years old, you wouldn't have to pry terribly deeply. You wouldn't have to ask a question to discover I'm a dating coach. I've gone out with a lot of people. I really want to fall in love and get married and start a family. And I want to move to the suburbs and be my son's basketball coach. That's my dream. I want to have pool parties in my backyard with all the families from the neighborhood. That's my dream. You wouldn't have to pry it out of me. So if a guy is not talking about his future with you, what he wants, it is a good indication that he doesn't want to talk about it. When a guy doesn't talk about a future with you or talk about marriage in general, it's because he doesn't want to, because he knows that talking about it will mean the end of the relationship. So he doesn't talk about it. So when a guy talks about a future, one day when you meet my mom, one day when we're married, what a guy's going to lead that. You want him to lead that. The absence of that is a problem. Even in that first month together, you want a guy who's projecting into the future. And it doesn't guarantee a future. It just means you're on sort of the same page about what you want. So I want to kind of bring back something that I do a lot. And I do a lot of gesticulating in my YouTube videos. The podcast listeners, you can't see this, and I apologize for this, but I make this sort of rising, 45-degree hand motion, talking about the escalation of a relationship. And you can have a guy that you've gone out with two or three times, that you hooked up with, that you had a great connection with, great conversation with, that you respect, who makes you laugh, who talks the right game. But for whatever reason, whatever circumstance, he is not following up quickly after the date to procure another date. He texts, but he texts intermittently, meaning you don't know really when it's going to come. Sometimes he's really active, and then sometimes he disappears for 4 days. Or maybe his text is just once a week, right? Or once a day, but there's no follow through, there's no phone calls, there's no talk about a future date. It's sort of coasting. So we see all these things, we get annoyed with all these things, and all of them are just forms of no. Right? I don't know if anybody's ever said that to you. They're just forms of, you want a relationship. This is what I'm giving you right now. If it doesn't feel like a relationship, if it's not this really smooth on-ramp where it starts the first week as once a week, and then you go out and you have an amazing time, then he follows up quickly, and then he follows up more quickly, and now texting turns into talking, and now talking turns into talking every day, and once a week turns into twice a week, three times a week, and now I guess for boyfriend, girlfriend, that whole thing happens smoothly over the course of generally 4 to 6 weeks. Now, there's life circumstance. You're driving your kid to college. He's on a business trip. There's reasons that it doesn't have to be 4 to 6 weeks, but there's generally a, a smooth on-ramp to that. And so we can make all the excuses in the world for why things are not going that smoothly and at that pace, but they are just that. They are excuses. They're all variations of no, right? And it's not personal. It's nothing to do with you. It's not your fault. But you can't make a guy who doesn't want a relationship with you want a relationship with you just by hanging around him long enough, right? He has to be driven on his own by his own desire to get you to take down your profile, to commit to him, to sleep with him, right? And to talk about a future with him. He has to drive that conversation. So yeah, again, there's always circumstance that could prevent two people from having a smooth escalation where that 6 week ramp turns into an 8 week ramp. Doesn't matter. You know the feeling of what it's like to have a guy make this kind of effort. You've had it before. So if you've had that before, when you know a guy really wants you and wants a relationship with you, why would you accept anything less from anybody else? That's where I'm going to leave you today. So before we go, I did this be the CEO thing. That was for free. Now I've unveiled my new LoveU Bootcamp, and that's sort of my favorite thing to do. It's fun talking to strangers on the internet, but my favorite thing is working closely with people who really want help, but they're a little more cost conscious. They can't sign up for 6 months of coaching. They're really busy. They want to kind of get the most value out of the shortest period of time. So I retooled my LoveU Bootcamp, and it is live if you go to evanmarckcatz.com/bootcamp. And what I do is in 6 weeks, meaning 1 hour a week for 6 weeks, we will be on Zoom, not just me talking at you like this. We will be on Zoom, you and me, and a small group of women, and I'm going to take you through all the best stuff in LoveU. Month one, confidence, which means week one, confidence. Week two, meeting men, online dating, flirting. Week three, dating from the first date to when he becomes your boyfriend. Second half, week four is on, off the top of my head, understanding men, chemistry, attachment styles, etc. Week five, relationships. Week six is commitment. So we're going to go through content. We're going to go through key exercises. We're going to do a live Q&A every single week for 6 weeks. So you can do my signature course, LoveU, in 6 weeks. All you have to do is go to evanmarckcatz.com/bootcamp. You can sign up. We're starting this thing up, I think, next week. I should be look at my calendar before I do this, but I think we're starting up next week, and you're going to get hands-on experience. You're going to fix your broken man picker. You're going to learn how to attract and connect with a quality man. And All you have to do is go to evanmarkatz.com/bootcamp, sign up with me, and I will hold your hand through this process. And it's going to be my pleasure when you exit this program with confidence, clarity, and some joy that you know what to do now, right? Because online dating has been such a grind. Dating and relationships have been such a grind. You have put up with so much for so long. You haven't had anybody taking care of you. And that's my favorite part of my job, is that I get to take care of you and show you what it feels like to have someone who's in your corner, who's looking out for you, who wants the best for you. So evanmarkatz.com/bootcamp. Sign up for the LoveU Bootcamp now. I look forward to seeing you there. My name is Evan Mark Katz. This is the LoveU Podcast. I look forward to talking to you again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.